Hey friends, welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the remarkable Kayleen Williams. We're two authors on a journey to learn more with you, the audience, so thank you for joining us. Tonight's guest began writing in the family newspaper at the tender age of 7. She grew up to found multiple businesses, all within the publishing and graphic arts realms. At one point, she found herself ghosting campaigns for opposing candidates, which put her in the curious position of arguing with herself. A writer, publisher, graphic designer, and marketer, she was an early entrant into the digital publishing era, setting type on the original Mac 128K computer with no hard drive or high-res printer. Her ultimate goal was to become what she is today, a Jessica Fletcher who lives alone with a spattering of computers throughout her 4-level home, as well as a writing studio in her she shed and another in a minivan to travel for inspiration. Kim Blagg, aka Ghostwriter Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I want a she shed.
What's a she shed?
Doom. No, I want one. A writerly doom. It'd be awesome.
I belong to a she shed group in social media, and I think there are 60,000 women in there, and they have she sheds. Say that fast. Everything that range from a corner of the house where they've draped a curtain across and said nobody comes through this curtain, to very elaborate ones that, as a guest house. And mine is started out as a storage shed, and I got rid of all that stuff and went in there and put flooring down and windows and air conditioning and heat. And when you go out there and you're in touch with nature and you leave, high tech behind you, you can really get into your book because there's nothing there to distract you. It's a very earthy feel, so I love it.
Well, we're already getting into the tips of what it takes to be a ghostwriter. I gotta tell you, when I think of all the professions out there, that's one maybe terrifies me the most. Ghostwriting just seems to be so much pressure to have deadlines, someone else expecting you to come up with all this creativity on the spot. And those words have to get out at a certain time because you're under a contract. I'm just really interested in how you're able to manage that and make this happen.
Well, when you start, you set it up like you do any business where you, let's say you're selling fried chicken. And you need to know how many pieces of fried chicken you can turn out in an hour. So how many orders can you fill in an hour? You do the same thing with writing. How many words do I average in an hour? When I'm really into it, really flying, no distractions, that's one number. When I'm like, I wonder what's on Facebook, or let me flip on the TV, that's another. So you kind of average that out. Keeping in mind that writing is a very exhausting profession. Your brain actually burns more calories than any other organ in your body. So it's very important that you not overdo it, because you'll end up where your writing just is horrible. So you have to have breaks in between, and you need to exercise, and you need some fresh air. But you just average out the amount of words that you comfortably put out. And you say, this is how many words I have available. This is my schedule for the month. And so you take away that onus of a deadline, because it's more production work at that point. It's not, you just don't overwhelm yourself. She says, who is overwhelmed right now? I probably have 30 books to do before the end of the year.
Oh, lady.
Yeah.
And
so
she's a riding.
You get greedy, they say, well, I'd really like to have you do that. And I can do that. I can do that. It's probably not a good profession if you're a people pleaser, because you'll just self-destruct.
But at least you're right on it. Your capability, you're averaging that. So you're not maybe most of the time technically overdoing yourself. So that's actually a really good thing for even just authors out there for your own work.
Well, everything that applies to what I do pretty much applies to anyone who's an author, except that I'm probably a little more production oriented and less marketing oriented than especially a self-publishing author would be.
Oh, to not have to worry about that. Okay. Lauren, next question before I distract myself.
Well, I like the chicken wings analogy, first of all, because I love food. But second of all, because I feel like a ghostwriter, you're being paid to make the chicken, to fry the chicken. Only where's the chicken coming from? You also have, it's your imagination is coming up with this. So it's like, how do you make the chicken happen in the first place?
You have to have an innate ability to come up with things, to be self-entertaining, to understand your reader and what they're looking for. So you need to be familiar enough with the genre to know what that reader is going to feel when they read what you're writing. Are they going to go, I wonder if it gets better in the second chapter, or are they going to stay up all night and read it? Mm-hmm. So knowing what your audience is wanting is a very important aspect of that. I've heard of something called writer's block, and I'm fortunate enough that I've never had it. I'm not even sure exactly what it feels like.
Torture.
I'm kind of a person who looks for side doors. I don't like to take anything head on because I feel like it's been too traveled. Mm-hmm. So when I write, I'll look for side doors. I'll bring in very interesting characters who maybe have nothing fundamentally to do with the plot, but they're such fascinating characters that you want them to live next door or to invite them over for dinner. And so that can help your plots along as you're going. And when you use that kind of a concept, your imagination just picks it up. I mean, they just become part of the story.
Yeah, you just totally gave me a funny idea. I'm just like, yeah, that'd be really funny in that situation. Horrible, but funny.
Another thing I do, probably I think a lot of writers do, is I'm older than you gals, so I have more people in my past that I would rather never see again.
Oh,
yeah, and
the fodder,
revenge. Yeah, the revenge thing. When you put them in your book, and you're saying, "Boy, I remember when he did this to me, and I remember when he did that to me, and he lied about that." There's a lot of sourcing there for your characters, and I don't write from outlines primarily. I don't even have a plot when I begin. It's a blank page, and I just start a first line that's a grabber, and it goes from there. And my characters, I do create my character. They're, who they are, and I'll grab screenshots of people and give them personalities in that. And then I let them talk to me. I just pretend they're all in a room and there's something going on. Somebody's hiding something, somebody's happy, somebody's in love, whatever it is. I'm also something called HSP. I don't know if you're familiar with that, a highly sensitive person, but highly sensitive people tend to be very creative because they're very in tune with other people. They pick up all the nuances when they walk into a room of what's going on. So it's kind of like walking into a book. So I'm using that same sensitivity when I write.
So something you mentioned about not starting with a plot, you don't really outline anything, and you're ghostwriting. This is somebody else's story for someone else's name.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of curious, what is sort of like the wavelength of guidance that you're getting from these authors when they're hiring you? Like, how much of a story idea, or do they even have a rough outline of a plot that you're working with? Or is it just like, hey, I have the story idea for Stones and Drones, go,
Well, my clients fall into categories. Some of them are publishing authors who just want more books out in the marketplace. And so they'll give me a series, or they'll have me fill in a series that they're already working on. And in that case, of course, I have to read their book and then take the next step on the timeline to do that. So while those don't have an outline per se, there's definitely lines and descriptions that are already formed in that. Other clients I have just have the idea they want to make money publishing books. And so they'll say, will you do 6 books for me? And I want this genre. And if it's a romance, I'll say, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how hot do you want it? And they're like, oh, I don't know. What do you think? And as soon as I hear that, I know that they are novices and they probably want more guidance than they want to give orders. And so the mama in me takes over, and I get what I want to write.
Like, all right, so this is the spice level I'm thinking. Nice.
Yeah. So
it kind of varies depending client to client versus something to really work with and not on versus something that this is purely from you.
Right. As I mentioned earlier, I've written Harvard textbooks for professors who have to publish in order to. Okay. And
that was pre-show, fellas. Pre-show.
Okay. I've done that. Okay, now I've said it, so it's on tape. This client, I knew nothing about his topic. And I'm embarrassed to even admit that I was a part of this, but I knew if I didn't do it, someone else would, and they may not be as responsible as I was. So I had to use very, very well-documented sources for writing that book. And then he takes it and turns it around and sells it for $400 or $500 and makes it required reading for his class, a textbook for his class. So there's a lot of that goes on. A lot of people who are notables, who the names you may recognize, they don't know how to write a book, but they want a marketing piece. So they come to you and they want you to make them look like a movie star, just like a makeover would be in wardrobe. So you kind of have to feed into their vanity if that's what they want. I always say that most people, they either publish for profit or posterity, one or the other. And you have to kind of acquaint yourself with them at the beginning to understand what is their goal and give them what they want for that goal.
So not only are you having to, as we indie authors, we have to get into the reader's head to know what they want. You are also having to be a whole other person to get into the head of that author to know that persona they want to give out and make sure you're giving them the right.
Right. I'm using them as a conduit to their readers. And I prefer to start with series that I'm doing the whole series that are done with multiple authors, like the Star Trek series. There are so many authors that wrote those books and they lack uniformity. I don't care how good your editor is, they may as well just have the editor write the book, because to try to make it uniform was so hard. So in series, I generally try to do the whole series myself, and that makes it a lot better. And people see the common sense behind that.
So what are some of the genres that you have worked in? We know you're a little nonfiction. That's exciting.
Some of the genres of fiction, well, I've done a lot of romances, everything from erotica down to sweet Amish, and sometimes at the same time. which
really gets spicy.
You really have to keep your hat on. Which one am I writing on right now? And then a lot of the period romances, historicals, those take a lot of research. Not every ghost realizes what they're getting into when they do a Regency versus a Victorian. I mean,
really got to get those time periods right.
You have to know that they didn't have those kind of carriages in that day, and what they wore and how they spoke. And for this, for my generation and your generation, we're very liberated women compared to a Regency romance. And it's very difficult to be submissive and to say, sure, yes, I would love to, when you know that this is so against what you believe in. Let's see what other, a lot of thrillers, a lot of mysteries, cozies, particularly a lot of cozies, crafty cozies and baking cozies. And
they're so cozy and fun.
They are. Sometimes they're boring to write. So the trick with those is to make them interesting enough that you can write a good book for the reader and not be bored, because it can be very formula. And the sweet romances, you run into that a little bit too, that there's not a lot to work with. And so you have to fill in with excitement from external characters. Maybe someone's, accident prone, or someone is not very bright, or someone who travels a lot. You want to include a lot of travel information in it, and tying the books together, developing the theme. So
you're not only focusing on one genre, because a lot of us indie authors, and the dual authors where they have trad and they're also indie, where you're not just focusing and understanding the tropes of one genre. You actually have to go in there and really dig on the tropes of multiple genres, because as you were saying before we had started, that's where the clients are. That's what they want. That's what they're hiring you for.
Right. And to keep your tropes separate, that could be a little bit tricky. If you're writing a sweet romance, you can't put gore in there. You can't put something that's going to offend someone, or a cozy mystery. You can't put, they're hard because you have a body and you have a murder, and to keep that palatable, that they're not going to have a nightmare about it is one thing, but they still want that contrast of the sweet, familiar, everybody knows everyone and everybody knows everyone's business. You need to keep that in there because that's, the reader wants to belong to that community and to know these characters, but you still have to have that blood in there. And so you have to be careful in the genres that you don't mix your tropes, that you don't mix them.
What is some of the research that you do before starting a new series?
Well, I always pick out my characters first, and I pick names, and I pick them appropriate to the era in which they were born. I capture screenshots of the kind of house they would live in, the kind of town they would live in, cars they would drive, food that they would eat, clothing they would wear, landmarks. Sometimes the books are to be set in a specific landmark like New York City or Chicago, and yet other times it's supposed to be kind of just this ethereal place that no one can go and find on the map. But you need a region of the country. Some of the types of vegetation they have, whether they have palm trees or whether the hyacinth grows there, your seasons, so that your timeline is correct. The kind of sports that they have, what the flavor of living there would be like. So that's the basic research that I do, and beyond that, it's just imagination.
But then you're not given any direction, or you're given very little direction about the plot, so you kind of come up with that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
By meeting your characters and by immersing yourself in that setting and figuring it out. So how do you let the plot unfold as you're writing it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I collect all this information and have I use Evernote for organizational purposes, and I'll put, each character has their own note in there, and it's like a lot of the other programs that are for organization, and I'll just pretend I'm in this setting, and these characters from my cast are there, and they're talking, and they're telling me their story, and so I allow them to talk. And it doesn't come from me. It allows them to talk because people are different. If I don't do it that way, they're all going to sound like they're the same person. They're going to be me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be, I'm going to be the young, good-looking guy that rides a motorcycle, and I'm going to be the shy little librarian. And that, of course, is not going to be reasonable to the reader. So they have to talk to me. Sometimes, for example, when I do Regency romance, I'll watch movies that are, set in that period, trying to kind of get surrounded by that to feel like you're in that. I'll play music that would be in that era, environmental cues.
Yeah,
it's actually a really good tip right there. Music that would come from somewhat of the time period that you're writing in to kind of get that inspiration going.
Because it's not only inspiration, your brain actually responds to that particular music and those cues, just as if you are in the book. So then you're telling as though you are set in the book. You're not using it so much as research as you are to set the scene for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard some people that even dress in period costumes so that they feel the confines of being laced up, you know, and and having their bosom spilling out, you know, whatever it is.
Kind of breathing.
Yeah, really, truly.
It is.
So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like acting, except you're putting in words. Mm-hmm.
And then another problem authors often run into is getting tired or getting bored with your book, you know, like halfway through, especially, you know, that middle slog. And that's got to be even more difficult for you when you didn't choose this genre, maybe you didn't choose to write this series, you know, it was someone else's idea and you're writing it for them. How do you push through when the excitement factor is waning for you, and how do you make it through to the end?
I have one client who I've done a series of books for, and these are set in the Middle East, and they involve terrorism. So this is very foreign to me. This isn't something I can go out the door and experience. And there's also a lot of medical things, and I'm not medically trained. So this is where I suppose the imagination has to flourish. And you ask yourself when you get to a point where you're starting to go, oh God, how many words have I got yet? And when you're there, you're in trouble because your reader's not going to be wanting to read what you're writing right now. So you need to delete that out, get rid of it, and find another angle. It can be bringing in another character who is unexpected. It can be revealing something about a character who they've been following all along and you just never told them this one part of it. And you lay in bed in the middle of the night and you think, oh yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll make her do that. Or, you know, I'll make him have this secret. And I've been known to roll over and pick up my phone and you know, hit voice recorder and if you tell, you know, speak whatever it is, and sometimes it comes in dreams, and then the next morning I'll go, oh yeah, I got that plot turn, and I'll hit it and I'll hear, yeah, and then
You're like, oh, so good.
Brilliant.
And in dreams it always is so great, and then you get you wake up and it's like, oh my God, you were even bothering to dream that. But yeah, it comes from all kinds of places. So life is unexpected, you know, and you can become too formulaic in your writing. So you have to bring in the unexpected, no matter what your genre is. Bring in the unexpected, and that makes people relate to it.
I like that.
So one question we need to circle back on is, like, how did you first get into ghostwriting?
Well, I was born into a family that owned a newspaper. My father was a nationally recognized columnist. It was a small weekly paper, but that allowed a lot of latitude. At the age of 7, he set me down at a hot lead line of type and said, here, type out. And this happened to be the birthday greetings. And then he would let me write little pieces about what happened in school that day. And we put it next to the lunch calendar for the school. And you just slowly absorb that, you know, that this is your role, and people are coming in the office all day and you meet interesting characters. And I live in a small town, so they're really interesting characters. Then I just stayed that path, and I was a typesetter originally, back when they called it typesetting, graphic artist, and working around printing companies, publishing companies. Then came digital publishing. I had a book that I had written, and I just did not want to go through all the finding a publisher route. So I published it myself. I happen to have the first ISBN ever issued to an ebook. So I did
the very first ever.
Mm-hmm. They Bowker had to create the category for me. Yeah,
that was this because you know you don't meet firsts very often. I'm just like,
and you got to be old to be a first. Yeah.
Well, no, I didn't mean that.
No, it's okay.
But I still think that's awesome.
So from there, I published my own books, and then I had friends online in readers groups, and writers groups, and they said, "Oh, would you do mine?" Yeah. I'll do yours. And about a year later, I had gone from 0 to having 4,000 authors whose books I was publishing.
Lord, man.
Yeah, and it was
I feel like a slacker.
It was it was overwhelming, and it grew too fast, and I couldn't train people or find people fast enough to keep up with that. So at that point in time, my personal life, my husband died, was sick for a long period of time. I was his caretaker, and I had to find something to do from home that was flexible and something I was comfortable doing, because caretaking is a very big responsibility. So I started taking on writing projects on websites, and they just went from there. I did little things first, a lot of nonfiction, how to potty train your 2-year-old, or, how to potty train your dog or whatever. And then went into fiction, and I always wanted to be that Jessica Fletcher who had her house to herself, her time to herself, and she could do nothing but write and bake cookies and ride her bicycle around town. And that's exactly who I am now. So
nice. You knew your mountaintop. You freaking went for it. Well, and I am really curious.
You do. I believe very strongly in the law of attraction that says you will, if you define to yourself, if you picture what you want, you will unconsciously make the right decision, A or B, at every turn, and you will end up where you're supposed to be.
So I am really curious before I go into our show sponsor, or spotlight rather. Yeah, it's a spotlight. You said you have 30 books by the end of the year. Okay, we're in November. There's just another month after that.
Mm-hmm.
In your time,
how in the heck am I going to do that?
But in this like whole career of ghostwriting, I am really curious. Whereabouts, how many books out there does Ghostwriter Kim have? I'm really curious. I don't know. Can you tell me that? You don't have to tell me what they are, but I'm really curious at the number.
I would say between 3,000 and 4,000.
Holy, y'all, my heart just stopped.
Well, other people's names are on them. So why do you ghostwrite and not just like destroy the indie publishing world by
God, you would slaughter us all.
No, the reason for that is I have how do I put this? When you write a book and you put it out there, you're responsible for that book. You're responsible for the accuracy. You're responsible for not plagiarizing anyone. You're responsible for the marketing of it. When you ghostwrite, you don't have to worry about any of that. And I can still be an influencer, a social influencer. I can write about strong women. I can write about loss. I can write about struggles with jobs and keeping things together, or the girl who can't find the right guy. I can write about all those things and then hand it off and go on to the next thing. No one knows who I am. Nothing comes back to me.
So you just enjoy, obviously 3,000 to 4,000. Good Lord.
Yeah, easily that
but
many.
You just enjoy just that process of writing, being there in the story with the characters, and then, all right, who's next?
It's cathartic. It's creative. I'm a very creative person. I have a lot of hobbies, so I bring those in one aspect or another, and that makes me be just like everyone else. So it gives them something with which they can identify. So yes, that's what I do. I live alone. I'm widowed. My children are all grown, gone. I have this big house, and my dog, my Jessica, she didn't have a dog though, did she? No, come to think, she didn't.
One up.
So yeah, it's not really a matter of competition or trying to be prolific. It's just a matter of what you do. I suppose if you asked a hairdresser how many haircuts and how many styles have you done, how many people have you taken care of, they're going to have high numbers like that too. And you're going to go, oh my God. But if it's what you enjoy doing, you do it because it makes you alive.
God, you make me want to write a whole book tonight.
Go for it. Just don't record it while you're sleeping.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, sleepy mush mouth. All right, before we get back into this conversation, tonight's spotlight is on Be a Writing Machine, Write Faster and Smarter, Beat Writer's Block, and Be Prolific by M.L. Ron. The no-nonsense and no BS guide to becoming a prolific author, available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Do you want to write a lot of novels, but can't improve your writing speed? Which is something we were just discussing. Writing fast is the most important skill you can develop as a writer. While it seems hard to hit high word counts, the secrets are easier than you think. In this writer's guide, prolific author M.L. Ron pulls back the curtain on the process that he uses to write 6 to 8 novels a year. You should write one of these books, Kim. Just kidding. He has
I didn't.
He has kept it. Oh, spicy. I like it. Sorry. Okay, I keep distracting myself. He has kept this pace while juggling responsibilities as a husband, father, manager at a Fortune 100 company, and a law school student. The result is a catalog of over 40 books and counting, creating a writing habit that suits your lifestyle. Use writing apps on your phone to double your word count. Learn strategies to beat writer's block forever. Discover how to write smarter by using unorthodox strategies used by the masters. This book is the only thing standing between you and your writing dreams. Write faster, write smarter, beat writer's block, and be the prolific author you've always wanted to be, or else suffer doom. Because we always have doom on Keystroke Medium. Click by now.
So Kim, I'm really curious after hearing that description, like if you were, or maybe you have, to write a book on writing productivity and the tips derived from being a ghostwriter, what would you put on that table of contents?
Okay. The tools of the trade?
Sure.
That sort of thing. Okay.
Give us some tips.
Okay. The very first thing is a good chair. And it may not be what you pick up down at Office Depot. I'm sitting right now in a chair that I'm ashamed to admit was a $4,000 chair. I did buy it through.
My heart stop.
No, I did buy it for about a quarter of that price because I bought it. They have warehouses where a company will swap out all their furniture every so often, and a lot of it is like brand new. Yeah, a lot of it's brand new. But having a good chair, otherwise your posterior goes numb, your posture goes bad, you start having back and vertebrae problems. Yeah.
And I'm already suffering one of those.
Yeah, and your hands and having your feet. Okay, so that's the number one thing. The best keyboard possible. When I go looking for a keyboard, I'm going down the aisles typing on keyboards until I find the one that has the right response.
I'm like, what is working with my fingers? Yes.
Yeah. And I have, this one is the MX, I think it's called 300 by Logitech. And this is for the Mac. What it also has kind of unique is a mouse that, let me get it in camera here. There we go. You can connect 3 different computers to it. So you can use the same mouse for this Mac or for the other Mac or the other PC.
And between, that's nice.
I am a strong believer in the computer speed because I'm a fast typist and I want it to be able to respond. I don't want it to lag behind me. So I'm also a believer. I love tech. So I have a lot of computers and I'm both Windows and Mac. I have big monitors. I have small. The biggest jump forward is the Mac, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it. The iPad Pro that has come out, and I have a Logitech keyboard wrapper on it. And so it gives me a 13-inch computer. The battery lasts forever. I can sit in the car with it. I can sit out in my writing shed, which is called Apparitions. And for the ghost, you get it. So to find the right equipment for that, the software, generally you have to have Microsoft Word. Most everyone wants delivery Microsoft Word because that's what they're going to look at the book in. some sort of organizational software. Like I say, I use Evernote. I've tried a lot of different things. Because I work on both Mac and PC, I put all my files up on Dropbox. So if I'm working on a book, I can access that book from whichever one of my 7 or 8 computers I'm working on at the moment. It's important to move around during the day. So sometimes I write in this chair, sometimes I write in a lounge chair, sometimes I'm writing outside, in my van, wherever. Keep moving. Sometimes I sit on the floor and write. So the comfort level and not having everything always be the same. I'm lucky I haven't gotten carpal tunnel, but a lot of people do. But I've been very adamant about having a good mouse that fits and a good keyboard that allows me to have the 90-degree angle at the elbow. That's very important, because remember, I'm 65 and I've been sitting type since I was 7. So that's a lot of keyboard time. What else did I have on here?
Dictation.
Thank you. Dragon Naturally Speaking. I have a really good microphone, the big fat ones, on a extendable, adjustable
Mic arm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The boom.
With the boom and all
with the
all
boom.
good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And the little spit screen and all that. I have good headphones, so I have learned how to dictate, and that takes time. In fact, I have been known to answer the phone and say, "Hello, period, open quote, how are you today?" comma, end quote.
It becomes its own language. It can be hard to turn off.
It does. And I have tried every shortcut there is. I will put in her, or that wouldn't be a good example. I will put in like Sue, and all my female, the protagonist would be Sue, because it's 3 letters. And then I'll go back and do a search and replace and put, Sue Ellen Longstein, whatever her name is going to be. So I'll do that with my characters, is I'll do a search and replace and make their names longer or more appropriate. There's just all kinds of little tips that you do to kind of utilize dictation. But I can dictate easily.
She's gonna kill us, y'all.
Well,
get ready for it.
If I do nothing but dictate in a day and I'm into the book, I'm not having to do a lot of stopping and researching. If I'm already, I literally am sitting in the recliner and I have my setup there, and I can write a 40,000 word book in a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Yeah. No, but it takes time to work yourself up to that. You gotta
do that every day. I imagine you do this literally every single day. This is what
7
you
days
live
a
and
week.
breathe.
7 days a week. Yeah. 16 hours a day. Sometimes 3 in the morning and I can't sleep. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait till I can be able to just put all the focus into my writing and not have to disperse it amongst all the things.
That would be really hard. I don't know that I would like ghosting if I had another job, a day job, so to speak, that I had to work around, because then the creativity is kind of like exercise. The more you do of it, the better you become at it, and the more easily it comes to you. And exercising that part of your brain. When I write so much that I'll write and I'll go back and read a chapter and I'll think, who wrote this? I didn't write this. And there's a link between something back in the brain to the keyboard, and I'm not aware. I'm not processing the thought. It just goes right onto the screen.
So you've just reached that point where there is no inner voice being like, are you sure this is a good idea? Are you sure the character needs to be doing this? You're just like, all the words.
No, the only problems I have is now that I'm getting a little bit older, sometimes I forget how to spell the word what. Literally, it's like, what? What does it sound like? What?
I was just telling my daughter, I'm like, there's going to come a day. Do not ever harp on yourself for if you can't spell a word, where you're going to denounce the existence of the word milk. You're just going to be like, milk. I know that's
Yeah,
a
it
word,
just
but it
doesn't
can't
sound
be
right.
a word.
Yeah.
So I totally get it.
There needs to be a website that all they do is when you go in there and type, you say, what's the word for when you X, whatever. The older you get, sometimes that's just being too tired too. And when you get to that point, you got to stop.
Kim, first word of Beowulf is what?
I have no clue.
I didn't
like it.
It was an old English word that's like, we're starting the story. Like, listen up. What?
I don't know. All I remember was Chaucer, the Juan Arapria with the surest solta.
Hey, that's
all I remembered.
That's good. So what about, do you have other tips for getting into the flow, to getting into the zone and staying in the zone?
In writing in general or ghosting?
Either.
Is there a difference?
Actually, there is very little difference because the product is a book. So you're going to be producing that. I work best with clients who give me creative license. So it is my books that I'm writing, and it's turning over that baby when you're done and saying, here you go. I never read the book after it's been edited and is on the market.
I was also going to ask that, is that editing process after? Do you ever see it again?
It's after. I do a read through, and then I do a Grammarly, and of course Microsoft has its own. And beyond that, there's always an editor involved somewhere down the line from my client, and so they do that. And sometimes they will edit to maybe make it sound a little bit more in their own words. I tend to write with a vocabulary with too many 50-cent words, and so I have to be very careful about that. And they may not speak that way naturally, so they want consistency with the other things that they're writing. So editing is primarily their function. Mine is to get the words down, to get the story down. My strength is my imagination. I hear that over and over again as, oh my gosh, how did you come up with that? Or where did you think of that? And that's the part that just has to be innate. And it's not that you can't develop it. It just, some people run faster. Some people, can hold the breath longer. It's whatever your particular thing is. And that helps you guide you to a genre too. What you are strongest in, you will relate to those readers the best. And that's the best connection you have. If you feel uncomfortable or you feel pressed to create a book in that genre, to meet those tropes, you have no business in it. You have no business
like
doing
you're telling us earlier, because Lauren and I, we deal primarily, especially in our editing world, with the sci-fi type genres, the military sci-fis. In our own writing, she does the Western war. I can't even say the word. Western romances. There we go. I got it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really enjoy fantasy, but telling us that fantasy and that sci-fi, you wouldn't even know where to begin, because it's not an area of genre that you yourself are immediately immersed in. So right. I took that as, if you are thinking about becoming a ghostwriter, definitely pay attention to what genres you're already reading, because you're already going to have a leg into those tropes, to those things that readers are looking for, and to those nuances that someone outside of that genre might not be able to catch right away.
Right. Yeah, knowing where you belong is very, very important. And I've been doing this long enough now that I know where I belong, and the word of mouth has multiplied my clients. One interesting thing I was going to throw in here is when this pandemic hit, there were so many people who were out of work. There were a lot of authors who were, oh, goody, now I get to focus at least full time on my writing. I thought, oh boy, here's going to be all my clients are going to go on. Yeah, because they don't have money coming in and they want to write their books themselves. So I'm not going to be needed. I easily 4 times as many books coming in.
Oh yeah, no, I was
thinking
like the floodgate of like this zombie apocalypse of authors of like Ghostwriter, you're just like, close the main gates,
I had to turn away a lot of work. I had to, and there's ways to do that. You can raise your rates. You can lengthen your turnaround time. You can just simply say, I'm scheduled until I don't have an opening until November. Are you willing to wait for that? Sometimes that can enhance your reputation. Sometimes it can not fit in with what your client needs because they have a certain schedule they're trying to meet. So pairing with the right clients is an important aspect too, to find the client. I don't work as well with people that are factories of turning out books where they have everything is set up and they send you a template and they send you, everything is, and we want to know, you let us know when you're at 1,000 words and 3,000 words and 10,000 words. And that makes me crazy. Then I'm all about, I feel like Lucy in that candy factory. She's popping those chocolates and just shoving them down her shirt and everything else. That isn't my thing. So the clients I work best with are the ones that say, here, you take care of it. You do it. You know what you're doing. Thank you. And let me know when it's done. The dream clients.
So if there is an author out there who's thinking of getting into ghostwriting, what are some pros and cons that they should consider, or what are some qualities of what it takes to be a good ghostwriter that they should kind of reflect on before making that leap?
Confidence not only to yourself that you can do this and make a living doing it, but confidence enough to impress a client that you know what you're doing. If you're doubtful, if you're having insecurities, if you ask too many questions, if you give them the impression that you're new at this, they're not going to put that. It's not about the money. It's about they're making babies. This is their baby. And they don't want to trust that to someone who's going to not do it competently, because it ruins their dream. It can destroy the inspiration, and it can destroy their self-confidence in them themselves.
Their name on
right. So confidence would be the first thing. When you start, you have to be willing to take the crappy little jobs. You have to build your portfolio. You have to build your sense of, this is how I'm going to produce this. This is the right equipment I'm going to use. You don't want to have to test out chairs and computers when you're writing an 80,000 word sci-fi. Okay, that's not the time to figure out that everything's going numb and you don't know why. I started out online. Upwork had predecessors' names on it, but it's Upwork now, and Freelancer. And I would just go in there and choose a project and bid on it. I would bid low so I could get some experience and so I could get a portfolio and a reputation, because those are very based on reputations. And I would get that and then slowly go for larger projects and slowly raise my rate. And so that was a big thing. You have to have self-discipline. You have to be able to turn the TV off and sit down and turn out the work. You have to be able to say, no, thank you. I don't want to go out to dinner with you, you big, handsome stranger, because I have to write and I prefer to write. So self-discipline is a big thing. The willingness, just like any business, is that you're going to have slim times and you're going to have fat times, and to be able to budget so that you can get through all of that. That's all important. The willingness to learn, the willingness to research, the willingness to find good research, not Wikipedia, that you go through the library, you can tap into databases, all kinds, just through the public library, and get actual true data, true facts, true historical information. So being willing to do that. And what I call the ownership perspective. If what I produce, I'm not willing to put my own name on, I can't expect someone else to do it. So when I do it, it's like my book until I'm done. And then I hand it over and go on to the next one.
That last part's so hard. That's like giving your child up for adoption.
Well, you think of yourself as a foster parent, Boy, the kid got a great start because he came from me, but now I'm going to turn him over and make another good one.
Just so you know, I helped him to do that thing that he doesn't do anymore.
I like that.
That's good.
So you mentioned rates. I've seen on Google like 10 cents a word and up.
That would be good. That
Would be good.
yeah. Generally for the newbies, like through Upwork, they're looking for somebody who's willing to do a penny a word. I have ghost written for ghostwriters. One area that is
like, wait, what?
Yeah. One area is people who are public personalities and they want to have an autobiography as a product, as something, an accessory to their marketing program. They'll pay a ghost to write their autobiography, which is ironic, but that's the way it's looked at. And then this person, they're really good at selling these. They go out and they make the contacts and they know they have a stack of these people that want them. They don't have time to write them. So they look like for someone like me. And then I interface with their client and write the book for them. So there's different levels in that. And with those kind of books, you can easily make $70,000 to $100,000 per book. But
You saw my face fall.
Yeah, you're sitting in this guy's living room. Literally, you have to travel and sit and interview with him. Maybe live at his house or at a hotel nearby. You're going to have to deal with 3 a.m.
Total life upheaval.
Yeah, it is. You take the 3 a.m. phone calls. And at the end, he says, this is a piece of garbage. I don't want it. We're going to start over. And you have to smile and do it. So you need to find your level of what you want to do. And I learned those are not the kind of people I want to work with, nor do I want to work with people who don't know what they're doing, who don't know how to market, who don't understand what to do with the book afterwards, because they're so new that I'm spending all my time training them, teaching them rather than writing the book. And then I know when I put this effort in it, there's no one's going to beat the path to their door. And so that's self-defeating. So I don't work with those either.
I am curious because you've mentioned a couple times the teaching them. So at what level of communication are you having with the authors that you're ghostwriting for, as far as you're going through the writing process, like that communication level? Did that make any sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I think it comes easier for me because of the publishing background I had, where I had the 4,000 authors, because I had to teach them to market their books at the same time as helping them write their books and so forth. So a lot of times they'll come to me and they don't have any experience at this at all. They've read articles on Kindle and they want to make big bucks and be a publisher. So I have to explain to them what a niche is, how to find your audience, how to market to that audience.
Oh, you become a book coach.
Right. And that seems to be something that brings them back. And one nice thing about that is they become dependent on you, because you're like producing the chicken for them, and they can't get the chicken anywhere else. So they have to come back to you. And I know that sounds kind of controlling, but it really isn't that way. It's more of a, let me help you. And this is a lesson, and we're going to improve upon the last lesson, and we're going to learn a little more and a little more. Sometimes I design their websites for them. Sometimes I design their book covers for them. Whatever it is that they need.
The whole, like, every time you open your mouth, there's just more awesome comes out.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you become their Yoda, and then they have to come to your to get.
Oh, well, I'm working on the Yoda body. I got that. But it's you become a mother to your clients, and that comes natural for me. I'm a fixer, a giver, a people pleaser, so it comes natural. Not everybody is. Some people are a little more on the narcissistic end of the scale, and they don't make good ghostwriters because they want credit for everything. So it's very difficult for them to do a good job on something that they're not going to get the praise for. So people who are givers and fixers, we tend to do better in this, because we can make our client happy and not worry about having to have the praise from it.
So you actually do a lot more as a ghostwriter than I honestly ever even realized, because my preconception was client has idea, client gives you idea, you write book, give book to client. But what you're actually saying is, you know, beyond all the research and stuff that you do for the book, you're even showing them, you know, how to maybe even find an idea. What's the niche that they're looking for, how they can market it, where they can look to do that. You're like, I mean, you're doing a lot more than I thought could ever even encompass ghostwriting. Is that average? Is that like what you say an average ghostwriter would do?
I don't think so, and only that's because the clients who leave me feedback, they say they tend to always bring up that I was helpful in the whole thing. She went over and above what was required, and there's a little vanity in that too. If you create that baby, you want to make sure that the home you're sending it to is going to cherish it and take care of it and promote it properly. So there's a little bit of vanity involved in that. You want your customer to be successful, or you won't be successful. They'll never come back to you.
So that's how you get the enjoyment of the publication without your name being on it. You ensure that bitch looks good. Through the whole thing.
I want to make them look good, right?
All right. I love it. I love it so much. Do we have any remaining questions?
We got some questions ahead of time from Scott Noon. He asks, what does a normal ghostwriter contract look like?
Well, that can vary. I only do non-disclosures, meaning that I'm not going to tell anyone that I've written this book. That's it. I will never enter into a contract that has any kind of financial penalty, like that I don't have it done by a certain date. And that's not because I intend to not have it done. It's because that tends to flag clients who get out of paying you by putting an unreasonable deadline on something, and then you don't make it, or they say, oh no, we're going to rewrite chapter 3, and now all of a sudden your deadline's blown and you've sacrificed half your payment. So the more they trust me, the more I trust them. It's kind of that sort of thing. One thing that is very important is that your client is absolutely certain that you haven't plagiarized. And the cheap ghostwriters will go out there and plagiarize everything. I've heard of schemes where they take somebody else's book, get this, and they'll feed it into Google Translate from English to Russian. And then they'll take the Russian translation and they'll feed it into Turkish. And then they'll take the Turkish translation and it gradually, 8 languages later, they'll bring it back to English. And it's been thrown around so much by that way. It doesn't show up in a search engine as something that has been plagiarized, but it makes no sense. It's a lousy book. It's a lousy read because the nuances of languages don't translate evenly like that. But there's people out there that do that. The contracts generally have to do with just not exposing your client in any way, not to the risk of plagiarism or something that you just make up and it's not true, especially if you're doing a book that has maybe diet or medications or something where they could be liable for that. So you have to be very careful about that. One other thing an attorney told me one time, this was actually when I was publishing for other authors, that if you get into a contract where there's any kind of liability at all, always make sure to include that if they file suit against you for anything, they can only do it in your district court. So if your client is one of these people who they get along by cheating ghosts, this, and I've had them too, they have to come to my court in order to sue me, which means if they're from Ireland or Australia or whatever, there's not going to be the international lawyers and all of that involved. I never had to make use of it, but it was a good thing that weeded out a lot of people who were phonies and who were out to take advantage.
Wow. Have you ever had a royalty split or share with?
I don't do those.
Don't do those?
Because I have no clue how they're going to market the book, and my business is not bookkeeping. My business is writing. And if the product that I generate if you don't have enough money to pay me for that, you don't have enough money to market that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it takes money to market a book. You have to advertise, you have to get your good cover designer. You know, there's expenses involved in that. And if you can't afford that, then you can't afford me. Did I say that right? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, dude, we're just going to average 3,500 books.
Right. And I am very low on the pay scale, and I do that intentionally because I like the level of client that brings me. And because I have so much time and enjoy what I do, this is entertainment for me. I almost would pay somebody to let me write their book. That's where I'm at. So my philosophy is, if I have enough, that's all I need is enough. I'm not someone who's interested in making a lot of money, because with that comes more responsibility. I don't want that. The more you have, the more you have to take care of. So I live in this niche where it's enough.
So on the other side of the coin, for people looking for you or other ghostwriters, what are some things that authors should be, you know, if they're not, you know, going to go talk to you, what are some things they should be aware of? Because even in just as an author looking for an editor, looking for a cover artist, there are certain things that you need to watch out for those people who are going to try and cheat you or, you know, that sort of thing. So what are some, I guess, tips for finding a ghost author writer?
Well, unfortunately, part of it is word of mouth doesn't work very well because you sign a non-disclosure, so people don't want to be known that they hired a ghost.
That would be the hardest thing to find. We're going ghost hunting for what?
Yeah, so
writing?
you can get word of mouth if you're an editor, but you can't get word of mouth if you're a ghost. So what has worked best for me is in social networking. I get to know people, and I join groups of authors who are looking for prodigious amounts of work and would likely be a candidate. I become very involved in the conversation in a helpful way, not an advertising way, but a very helpful way. And I have a lot of years, so a lot of experience, and gradually they'll come. And I'll get dings at 3 a.m, you know, how much do you charge? And you know, that's how it goes. Like I say, I go on the websites, and most of mine is repeat business.
Yeah. I found you through the 20 books to 50K group. Marcel did a post about ghostwriting and ghostwriting services, and that made me think, hey, you know what? I bet authors who watch this show might be thinking about trying ghostwriting. There could be someone out there. So I need to find a expert ghostwriter, bring her on the show to talk about her business, talk about what it takes, and to share the information in case there are people out there thinking of it themselves.
Right. You want to look at their website. They should have a portfolio for you to look through, and it should have more than one genre on there. Because a lot of people who are in that particular group, they're writing in multiple genres. They're trying them out, which one is working best, which one's moving the best. And they may hire someone like me to open a new genre for them. So the more versatile I can be for them, the more likely they will want to work with me. And having a comfortable relationship is very important. You begin to understand when they're looking to contact you, you know. Like I work with a lot of people who are on the other side of the planet, 12 hours out from me. And that can be a little bit, you know, awkward. Sometimes you can't get a book through as quickly if you have a lot of questions to ask. So they should have a good website. They should use proper grammar in their posts in the social networks. They should be neutral. You can generally figure what their intelligence level is and what they're contributing about writing, how generous they are to other authors. When there's nothing in it, they can't. See, I made one mistake. When I joined Facebook, for example, I used my maiden name because I was contacting schoolmates. Well, that didn't do anything for me. I wanted to have a ghostwriter. I wanted to expand my clients, right? So I changed my screen name to Ghostwriter Kim. Well, now I can't go into 20 books and post because the gentleman that runs that group, I'm not allowed to advertise in any way. And I asked them, and they said it's okay if people say writer so-and-so, Sue writer Sue, but ghosting that's too obvious for them. So I can't post in there anymore.
Because of your name. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense because they're all about it's the indie author writing their books, and you would be selling a service. So I get it, but that sucks.
I have enough work that I'm not too worried about it. Really not. Sometimes you get a client from someone who decided they no longer wanted to be in the publishing business, and maybe they're close enough friends that they can confide and say, well, I had a ghost help me with this. I get a kick every once in a while to see people advertising a book that I wrote, and they'll say, I never use a ghostwriter. I would never, ever use a ghostwriter. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking,
and you're just
really?
Sure you don't.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
But then you look and you're like, oh, but that one's doing so well. Look at those numbers. It's gorgeous. Look at the cover on that thing.
Yeah, but you can take pride in your children without having to sit next to them all the time.
That's true.
That is so cool that you just love the writing. You know, like that's the only part that's the piece that you focus on. That's the piece that you have, and that's the piece that keeps you going. It's just the writing, just the creativity part. Love that.
All right. So this has been a really fantastic. I wasn't sure what to expect from the ghostwriting conversation because we can't know really what you write. We can know this, everything around here, but not that, which we would never ask you because that is just.
Well, let me say this. If you were to walk into a Barnes & Noble, there would probably be 3 books at least of mine in there.
Wow.
Nice.
So they win awards. So that isn't bragging, but what I'm trying to say is if someone is considering exploring using a ghost, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend $70,000 to $100,000. There are people like me out there who just enjoy doing it. And there's a lot of people who do it to supplement their day job right now, particularly since a lot of businesses are closed down and or they're raising their family. And it doesn't matter if the baby's screaming. If you're writing, you're not, you're still at home, take care of them. So there's a reward in it, and it can be a quiet reward. Like I say, you can be proud of your children without being them or being with them all the time.
That's actually, yeah. I'm just going to end the show on that note because
sure,
that's a beautiful note. Y'all, if you really enjoy the writing, you love getting into the characters, into the story, maybe ghostwriting is for you. If you can write that baby and be like, here, take good care of it, give it a good home, wrap it up all nice and pretty in something, warm and cozy, and go on to the next one. You could be like Writer Kim over here. Ghostwriter Kim. I'm just going to call you Writer Kim because freaking A. 3,000 to 4,000 books, y'all. I am up for shame. All right. So thank you so much to everyone out there in the live chat right now, hanging out with us, enjoying all of the wisdom that has been partaken and bestowed upon us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And here's one of the best parts. If there are people out there that are like, you know what, I really want to find a ghostwriter, but I am so terrified of finding the wrong ghostwriter. Mm-hmm. Is there a place where they can find you?
Well,
if you can give that.
I'm on Facebook and my screen name is Ghostwriter Kim. My website where I have a portfolio, my company name is mbooks.com, and that's mboox.com. And my email is kim@mbooks.com. So there you have 3 means of reaching me.
Alrighty. So if y'all,
or they can talk to you and they can talk to you and you know how to get to me too. So
alrighty. Everyone out there, again, thank you for joining us. Be sure to check us out Mondays in the AMs. Right? It's AM now. Yes. AMs for Live with Josh Hayes and Scott Moon. Be sure to check us out next week, Thursday in the PM. Mostly Thursdays because today is Friday. I am so screwed up with this week. for Writer's Journey. And also, don't forget to check out Coffee and Concepts in the way AM. If you're in the time zone, I'm at Walt's all up in there at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to check that stuff out later, where he gives you this just short bursts of all the amazing that he is. And as always, more reading, more writing, and everything in